consecutive nights on the code, 3 consecutive nights, I'll make sure I have my laptop, and I won't, I think it's this building, because just two or 3 hours ago, I used it in the math building, and I used a remote desktop just fine. So this building may just be shut down. So let me recap, hopefully you saw, by the way, even though the video was only 54 minutes, like there's a factor of 3 by the time you do it and edit it and all that kind of stuff, so it was a long process on, I guess it was Friday or Saturday morning, but I'm sure you saw something on there. So anyway, let me just recap what I did in that video. You all should have at least looked at it or something. I didn't look at the number of views. Of course, that doesn't mean you can start like watch for like 3 seconds, and then that counts as a view on YouTube. But the first thing I did was I created a DigitalOcean account, and I created the LAMP harness. Now, a couple of you came to me on the free call on Monday, and if you don't log into your digital account and copy and paste that link, you don't get the right thing. A lot of times it doesn't install PHP, it doesn't install badges, and so forth. So I had a few people on Monday that I was kind of helping them through that. If that didn't work for you, what you need to make sure you do is log on to your DigitalOcean account, copy and paste the link, it brings you to the LAMP stack creation thing, and just go through my thing. All right, now once you do that, the next thing I did was I showed you where all the files were in the HTML section. We edited those, and then I went to GoDaddy and I changed my domain, and I typed cop4331-5.com, and it would go to my new website, right? Okay, and I will stay, by the way, every class period, I will stay as late as you need me. I stay late after class and when you need me. Okay, so don't hesitate to ask. I do a lot of the extra Zooms. All right, so then the next thing I did was I did a database. I created the database. I put in, how long did it take me to create the database so that you actually watched it? Like 20 minutes? It was pretty easy, wasn't it? And someone asked, is the contacts table that I put in there, is that what you should use? Probably. Now, it's not mashed up. You know how mine were all mashed up? You probably should mash it up and use it. You can still use it unmashed, but then you have to hit enter a bunch of times. So really, what did I give you? I gave you the user table, and I gave you the context table. Basically, you could be done with the database. You should be done with the database now, but in 20 minutes or 30 minutes, less than an hour, your database person is going to finish this project. They're part of this project, right? Okay, so if you have trouble with the database this week, make sure you stay after class. I'll help you or whatever. And I believe Jacob is expecting the database roles to be in lab this week. And he's actually pretty good too. He will help you and work with you, but your database has to work for lab this week, okay? You got that? What was the next thing I did? I created the endpoints, right? And each endpoint, I was clarifying this was something out there, each endpoint is a single PHP file. That's not always the way it works, okay? Some people take like all their endpoints and mash them into one PHP. So I don't do that. It makes it more confusing. So I had a login, an add color, and a search, right? Here's what you will probably have, although you can see, you're probably going to have a login PHP, a register PHP, and now you got 4 CRUD operations. Create, read, which could be search, read or search, whatever. Update, and then delete. So that's 6 endpoints you're probably going to do. You can actually, if I were you, get your database done, use my login as is, which you're allowed to do. I told you, steal my code, I don't care. Use it. So you can get you should have the login API done this week, right? So I showed you how I created my API endpoints. Now, I said this 3. Gerber is really good. Anybody have Gerber? What's he do when he wants you to remember something? He says it loud 3 times, right? So when I did this recording, I did it 3 times. By the way, Gerber and I, we can co-teach SD1, so I'm learning from Gerber, right? So anyway, do not tell the front end that your endpoint is done until you Jubilize. Test it with Postman, right? Postman is pretty easy to use. I have instructions. If you have trouble, I can actually even write up some instructions for you. Basically, you put in the URL to, and don't forget LAMP API is case sensitive. Put in the URL, make it say post, go in here to the headers, and say content type, JSON application, and then go into the the body, click on raw, and put in your JSON. Click send, and you're done. When it comes back, should come back, and everything should be good. Now, I initially talked to someone, and we were getting this HTML coming in and said PHP not installed or whatever. So if PHP is installed, that's not gonna work. So that was the next thing I did, was I showed you the endpoints, I showed you how to test them. The last thing, which I think is, and I talked about primary and secondary, or primary and foreign keys, right? So the primary key, remember how in the users table I have ID, and it auto increments, and when it auto increments, it's always gonna be unique. And so if I'm the 17th person to enter, to register, I'll have ID 17. If I'm the 432nd person to register, ID 432nd, 432. I think it goes up like 2 billion or something. You're not gonna run out of IDs. So that's in the user table. What was in the colors table? It had an ID also, which was its primary key, but it also had this thing called user ID. I named user ID. So this is a foreign key. If Joe Smith has an ID over here of 42, then everything he adds into this table is going to have a user ID 42. That's how we link them up. That's how. So you don't create a colors table or a context table for every user. Like you use that user ID. So this is called
about the IDs, the primary key versus the foreign keys. Forgot that bit.
That's about as much as you really have to learn in this class. So, by the way, there's database is not a required
like I said,
class.
it's been so many years.
At UCF, you should seriously consider taking a database course, because almost every job you ever get is going to need at least knowledge of database. So consider that. All right. So then the next thing I did is I showed you about the front end. The front end, the HTML was, how would you classify it? Simple, right? Would it have like that many lines, right? Front end. So it had the username and the password, and you just type it in. JavaScript was more complex, and I went through every line of the JavaScript and explained it, okay? Now, I don't expect you to be a genius, and what you might already, I'm sorry. I don't expect you to, you're already geniuses, I do expect that. But I don't expect you to know JavaScript. I do a JavaScript lecture in here, but for right now, I don't say, oh yeah, you need to know this stuff, you should know. So just kind of at your leisure, if you're on front end. Front end is the last team to sort of get in here, spend time studying it, okay? Because it gets more complex when you do stuff like the landing page and so forth. And you know that Paradise thing I showed you that I was going to a few years ago? Go ahead and look at that, because that's a really good example of what you should probably consider doing. Paradise is good, scuba diving is good, I love sharks. Students like to do these things to try to make fun of me, but I just enjoy them. By the way, I do have students who barista teams. That's a whole different story than barista. I'm sure you've heard about this. So anyway, that's what I did on that video. Do you have any questions? And I don't expect you to know perfectly. I'll stay tonight if you have questions. I'll stay every night after class, as late as you need me, and I have office hours and I'll do extra Zoom. I just want to make sure, because we're really rushed. I know I'm really mean. Right? I crammed so much. He asked me if he could record this class. Fine, because I crammed so much. UCF, you need 10 years to be at UCF so you can really learn everything. So I just try really hard to give you what I can. All right. Any questions on that video? And this is Simon. Yes.
In regards to developing the different parts of our project, are we able to use like different tools that help out with them, the different aspects like Bootstrap or like the HTML layout?
So I encourage Bootstrap, but I don't require it. However, on your next project, the large project, Bootstrap or something like Tailwind or Material UI is required. So if you started with Bootstrap now, it'd actually be really good because it gives you practice. What is Bootstrap? Bootstrap is like a CSS job. CSS depends on how you use it. But let's just say right now it's a CSS library that makes stuff responsive. Like when I resize the screen, stuff changes and it looks really nice when you have different screen resolutions and stuff. So it's not required on this project, but it's really nice if you can do it. So very good question. The things I'm not going to let you do is use Python. I love Flask and Django. There's some really nice Python kits that you can use. So we're not going to use those in this sort of takes away from the other things I'm going to be doing. I don't let you use Burn or React or anything on this project. You gotta use CSS and HTML and JavaScript. I apologize for that. Next project, we use React, or you can alternatively use Angular and Vue. So I actually have a methodology for this class on how to teach you guys what you need to know. So any other questions? Now, where should you be right now? Let's see. Let me use the greatest PowerPoint slide in the entire world right now. No, today, it's a joke at Microsoft, by the way. That font is actually a little too big here. I did it for whatever the other day. Tell you guys something. All right, so database. You need to have the database done by now. If you're not done with the database now, like he said, if I did the database in 20 minutes, you can do it in a couple of hours if you're taking your time off, okay? So whoever's the database role needs to get it done like now. Why? Because I'll be talking about this idea of dependencies. Your team has dependencies. Who is dependent on the database? Everybody, right? Especially the API. So if you're haven't done the database by now, please get it done quickly. I'll help. Plus, Jacob is going to want to see it in your lab. So database has to be done now. I would say after that, you should get at least the login done. I'd say by the end of the week. Let's see. Is that 15, 16, 1, 19, 2024. Now, I am going to encourage you on the login endpoint to use mine. You can do whatever you want. It's a free country for API endpoints. Why? Just go ahead and use mine. I'm inviting you to do it. But now, once you get the login, you should probably do the registration here the next couple of days. And I would say that's by Sunday night. Get that done. Now what happens is the front end, as long as you test it with Postman, the front end can actually get their part done. They can do their login and registration pages with me. See how the dependencies go down the pipeline like that? So that's why it's really important to get this stuff done. So then I'm going to say next week, the front end should hook up login and registration. I know that LI is lazy. I'd say by Wednesday, so let's see, that's 22, 23, 24. And then it's kind of a free-for-all as far as, I would say the API endpoint should all be done by the following Sunday night. And then the hardest page for the front end is like not the login and registration, but like the landing page, okay? Where everybody comes in, they've already logged in. So the landing page is hard because it's gonna have all your results listed, and it'll have a button to do a edit, a button to do an update, a delete, or whatever, or a search. So I would say, from that point, I can't give you dates, but theoretically, the first presentations are going to be 8, your fingers, 8, 15, 22, 29, February 5th. I believe the first one will be on February 6th. So if you're unlucky, your team will be presenting on February 6th. If you're really lucky, you'll be presenting on 5, 12, 13, 14, 15, February 15th. So there's a big disparity between the first and last game. We do presentations 4 days in a row. By the way, I'm not doing attendance tonight. I said I would. Like, so in my programming languages class, like, it just didn't work. Like, half the people didn't get marked. So my psychic tip is no failure tonight. Forget it. We may actually start taking attendance, but I've got to call IT and see what went wrong and all that stuff. Okay, so that's kind of where you need to be. So who wants to proudly say that they're done with their database? Anybody? You guys rock. You guys, very good. Who thinks they can get the database done by now, or tonight, tomorrow night? Okay. Please, if your database, please get it done, okay? Now, Who on the API teams is looking at my API code?
I have it, don't worry. I think I pinned it somewhere in the Discord.
Now, who on front end is looking at the front end saying, this isn't too bad, I can do this, right? JavaScript is easy, right? Now, I am going to, the next thing we're gonna do, is there's a requirement for you. Remember this API stuff was really big. Was it someone in this class, I talked to someone who just had a job interview, no, it was in my programming language class. He just did a job interview, they were asking him all about APIs and so forth, and he was like that, because of this class, okay? So this is stuff you're gonna probably get in your interviews, okay? All right, so we have a way for API people to document their API, so the front end people don't need to bug them in. You with me? Like, do you want them to call you at 4 in the morning and say, hey, how does this API work? You want to be able to show them. I actually hate this. I hate this too. Okay, it's called Swagger Hub. So Swagger Hub, I don't need a remote desktop for this. So this is Swagger Hub. There is a free tier, although they try to get you to pay for it. I've been on the free tier now for this is my 6th year on the free tier, so. If they're trying to make you pay for it, you're in the wrong place. So just go to swagger.io. Now on the web course, I have a Word document that talks about how to use Swagger and how to use it gives you step-by-step instructions, but I'm gonna do that now, step-by-step instructions. It's really easy except for this brain damaged YAML that makes it work. So YAML is really pick these up, indentions and stuff. So these are duplicates. But this is what will happen. Let's say your API, your front end wants to know, well, how do your sorry. Okay, there we go. I was almost like, oh, come on, demo, God, be with me. Okay, so there are 2 parts to this. There's the code on the left side, and that's for the API people to do. And then there's the actual demo part on the right side, and that's for the front end people to look at.
In general, especially in CS in
So
general.
let's say I have, let's say I don't know how the login works. So I go over here,
It would be so
and
much
you can move
easier
stuff
if
over.
they actually documented it well. It's so not documented
And
well.
here's the login, I want to test it. So let's say, okay, so it says it's a post. It gives me an idea of sort of how I'm going to use it in my code. Oh, there's a JSON that I can use. And I don't know, some people in the free-for-all, this has to be perfectly cased, so the JSON everywhere has to have the same casing, right? Capitals have to be the same. If it's lowercase, it's lowercase. If it's uppercase, it's uppercase. With me? That is the #1 error I get in this class, in this first project, okay? So just make sure that your JSON matches, okay? So now, so I see what the JSON should be. I'm like, I can do that for my front end. So let's hit try it out. And obviously, that's not gonna work because you know that I've got the password that everybody has. Username and password that everybody knows what password probably has by now. Rick LCLP331. And I hit the execute button. And as long as everything's good, here's my results. This is you can ignore that. Just go down to where it's showing you the JSON it sends back. ID 1, first name Rick, last name Lineker, error, I just had a blank error. Nothing goes wrong. That's a Rick Lineker thing. A lot of people don't do that. But over the years, I've found it's going to save you a lot of effort if you do that. Okay, that's how the front end is going to use Swagger Hub. Let's say you have a delete, or you have an edit, or you have an update, or you have something, and they don't know how it works, so they can put it in their code. They're not going to call you at 4 in the morning. What are they going to do? Go to Swagger Hub, try it out, and see how it works, okay? That's the purpose of this. Now, that's for the front end people. They get the easy part. The API people. By the way, API people, don't touch Swagger Hub until you what?
Test
Test
it.
it with Postman, right? You can do this endpoint, put it in Swagger Hub, this endpoint, put it in Swagger Hub, but don't do like all your endpoints, put them in Swagger Hub, before you've tested each one of posting, okay? Very important. Very important step. Okay, so you have the easy part front end. Now, if you're on the, let's see if I can do this. There we go. Demo vendor still with me tonight. So this is the YAML. And I have my YAML on the web course. You can see a link. You can download it and see it. I'm going to go through it right now. But if you want an example, just go ahead and download my YAML and take a look at it. But now, the Word document that you've all waited for that's online is right here. And create a basic API with Swagger. Create. See? It even says, create new API. How much easier can it be for you guys? You geniuses. Use the following options. So make sure you do this. Now, there's an older and a newer syntax. I want you to use the Open API 2.0. There's a 3.0, but the 2.0 is easier and clearer, and all my examples use it. So if you don't do that, guess what? There's a rule in computer science. If you don't do it right, it doesn't work, right? So I gave you all this. Open API 2, simple API. You can name it whatever you want. Let's see, what could it be like? I hate this class. No, I love this class. Public. This is important. If you don't make the right decisions there on AutoMock API, it's going to try to do everything internally. Your API test. So you've got to make sure, and then just click on Create API. Once you do that, it's YAML time. So at the very end of the file, that's what goes there. At the end of the file, so it's your domain, whatever it happens to be, .com, basepath, / LAMP API, whatever I said, LAMP API, schemes. If you have HTTPS also supported, you'll do that here too. I'm not going to support HTTPS. You don't have to. I think Heroku forces you to do it, but that's the next project. Okay. All right. Now that's at the end of the file. At the beginning of the file, we have a bunch of this metadata crap, which isn't even that important. But I would put it in there, just blah blah blah. It's blah. Right. Swagger 2.0 needs to say 2.0, not 3.0. Okay. So this is API documentation for the cool color demo app. Now comes the actual meat. So the metadata is at the beginning. That server data is at the end, right? And the middle is where you put your actual working meat. So you're going to have 3 sections, or really 2 sections. You're going to have a path section, and the path is going to start off with, and every one of these indents is assiduously enforced. Every indent is 2 spaces. If you mess that up, Swagger Hub is going to hate you. You're going to hate Swagger Hub because it doesn't work. Okay? So make sure you're counting your indents. Okay, indent / login.php. And this is how I actually use different languages and different platforms. This Swagger, you just change the file name extension. It's a post. Notice post is is 4, has an indentation of 4 tag. And by the way, so make sure you look at my sample file. That way you can count the number of spaces. Tags. Oh, I say 4 spaces, 2 spaces. Yeah, see how nice I am. Okay, users. So you want to. This stuff is not as important as the description, but still go ahead and do it. Summary. Add products, whatever. All right. So now my responses. Just put this up here. It's what you're going to get from HTTP. Pretty standard. I mean, you could put like a 500, which is like a server error or something. You might get it, but you'll still see it when you use Swagger Hub. Now the next, okay, so here I have sample code, and this I check these. This has all the correct indentions, so you can use this. This is actually come straight out of that file that's on the web course that you can download. So you need to use this and count the indentation steps. So this is my path section. Now I need a definition section, and this will probably make more sense to you than the definition section. So for login, it's an object type, And here are the two parameters that are required. Now remember, my JSON has login and a password, key value pair, right? So that's where that comes from. So if you have a different API endpoint that you've created that I haven't covered, then you'll have to make an adjustment. Okay, properties. So the properties is going to tell you, it's going to try to help you define what that login is. It's a string. Here's an example. And the example is what your front end user is going to see. They're going to see that. It's a thread. But remember, I changed it to Rick L. Okay. So my password is secret. Remember how when I was showing you that, I had changed it from secret to COP4331, which you probably all have in your database at this moment. And here's my definition section. Now I'm going to add on other endpoints using the exact same method, okay? So for every endpoint you need a section of paths and a section of definitions, okay? All you have to do is follow this, and it's pretty good. And if you do it one at a time, put them all in there and try see what happens, okay? Just put them all in there one at a time and test them and make sure they work, okay? So here's the process. The API people, they look at my brilliant code, and they clone it, they get it to work, so they have the login, they test the login with Postman, they go to Swagger Hub and they document what they're doing to the front end and see what they're doing. Now they go back and they do register, they do the endpoint, they test it with Postman, right? Then they go to Swagger Hub and they do the Swagger Hub documentation. They do what's made this is you guys are computer science. You know sequence, you learn that in Python and C. So this is just sequence and correct use. Any questions on Swagger Hub? Here's one thing, I cut you off. Okay, here's one thing that people do and they forget. They say, okay, I did my endpoint, now I'm going straight to Swagger Hub. But they miss this step here. And that step is test with Postman, right? So please get this right, or you get the score in a line error, whatever. Yes? Because Postman is harder to use, so the API endpoint creators can more easily do it. Swagger Hub, they don't have to do anything, they just click a couple buttons. So it removes the necessity for them to really understand the stuff happening. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you're running, once you use something else, Postman, or whatever, they're free to do that. But the reason for this is so I don't have to know the inner workings of what you've done. It's easier for the front end people to use the application. Yes?
So once you test all the endpoints, you just post the PHP file.
So you'll put the API endpoint PHP on GitHub, or you can't test it. Wait, oh, I'm sorry. On the server, GitHub, yeah, you'll put it in GitHub. I'm sorry, sorry. Yeah, so go ahead and put it on GitHub. Some of you, to be clear, that's what politicians say. Rewind, Control Z. So a better explanation is, some of you, did you know that GitHub can actually do a direct deployment to your server? So there's this thing called CI/CD, constant integration, constant deployment. You can actually set up your GitHub so when you push to GitHub, it will automatically deploy to your server. Dangerous though. And if you're going to do that, what you should do is have a second person do a code review before they approve it, okay? Because someone can actually do CI/CD and upload something that doesn't work, and you're like, hey, what happened? Nothing's working anymore. Okay, so, but a lot of jobs do this. I know software engineer Capital One, like when he pushes to GitHub, like it does unit testing, which we'll learn about in the class, and then once it passes the unit testing, it deploys it. So you can set that up, or you can just do it like I did it with FileZilla, which is totally fine. So you use FileZilla to upload all this, but yeah, once everything's good, push it to GitHub. That way, I'll be happy. You have a backup and all that kind of stuff. So any other questions about Swagger Hub and the process? Okay. So more about this process of software development, software engineering. Now I really hate you. I hope I don't hate you. Like I saw it when they were like, getting sued. So, we need to talk about how you're gonna actually, so remember I told you on the first night that you've learned programming so far. C, Python, Java, I don't know, CS1, CS2. That's called programming. What I'm teaching you is software engineering. Now, software engineering requires this nasty word, documentation. And to be honest with you, that's the part about software engineering that I actually dislike the most. I actually hate bugs the most, but if someone else caused it, I could blame them. But, so this idea of documentation, without good documentation, your project could actually be a flop, a failure, or whatever. So we're gonna talk about the documentation that this project requires and that your next project will also require, okay? So, some of them are UML and some are not. We're gonna start off with the non-UML ones, and I've sort of described a couple of these already too. But these are the ones that don't fall under the category of UML. First one is called a Gantt chart. Now, I get this. You know what people tell me at the end of this first project about a Gantt chart? You couldn't use it, it's too short of a project. I get it. I just want you to get the practice of using a Gantt chart right now. It's gonna do next to this much good for managing your project, but at least you'll learn how to do it. A Gantt chart is going to help you figure out who's doing what and when they're doing it and what my dependencies might be. You see what I'm saying? Like, remember I told you that the database was a dependency for API is a dependency for front end? Okay, so the Gantt chart lets you actually visually see this stuff and everybody knows, oh, I gotta do this, or this person's gonna be mad at me, and then the whole project falls behind. You with me? So that's the purpose of a Gantt chart. I know that's like a wall of text there. That doesn't matter, I never read it anyway. So a Gantt chart looks like this. This is just an example. They can look differently. But notice, on the left side you've got tasks, and they're organized, they're categorized like documentation, design, database API, front-end framework, okay? Category, who's it assigned to? Might be assigned to more than one person. That way I know who to call or get a hold of on Discord or however you guys do it today. I had one group use WhatsApp. Why don't you do that? Or Telegram. Discord is so much better and easier. All right, so get in touch with here it is, Cody and Nor and Peter did that second thing. So if you're waiting on them, then you just contact them and say, hey, what's up? You know, try to be nice. People get really. Have you ever noticed that when someone's late on a deadline, like they get really defensive? So be really nice. Okay, so go ahead and make sure. Say, hey, is there anything I can help you or whatever? And then these are all 100% for the previous project. And then the bars give you an idea of sort of where everything sort of lines up. So this is a Gantt chart. I'm going to ask your project manager to create a Gantt chart like today and tomorrow and the next day, even though it's almost too late for this project because you've already a week and a half into a 4-week project. But for the next project, it will be very helpful. So I'm going to ask you to do this anyway. And this also, your Gantt chart has to be part of your final presentation slides. So, and don't like explain it like take 20 minutes to explain like, here's my Gantt chart, next slide, whatever. So, we don't have very much time for these presentations, especially with the size of this class. In fact, I've even cut out one of your tests. I'm going to give you your test, your first test. I'm going to give it to you. It'll be a take-home test. But so anyway, I can't even give you a test in class. See what you did to me. No, actually, Dr. Heinrich did it like opening half of these classes. Who knows what it is? But I'm glad that I have only a class like this. Because I have found that the larger the class, the better. I love getting people's inputs and hearing from them and their life experiences. I really love hearing from you guys. So here's a Gantt chart. How do you do it? Okay. Team Gantt, Gantt Pro are two really good choices. You can use Excel. You can use Draw.io. You can even use Excel. Make a Gantt chart on Excel. There are actually Excel templates out there for doing Gantt charts. I don't necessarily like Excel, but you know, just kind of look around and see. Let's see. Anyway, so So this is what I'm gonna look at, like when I talk to a team, we actually have check-ins, we have TA check-ins this project. So what happens is they'll want to see your Gantt chart and where you are in relation to the Gantt chart. So here again, I get, this Gantt chart is not gonna be that useful for this project, I just want you to get the experience. For the next project, it will be extremely useful, okay? So that's a Gantt chart. Tools, Gantt Pro, Team Gantt, Excel, Lucidchart. I actually like Lucidchart for almost everything. If you're using Trello for your management too, you can get a third-party add-on to Trello, and it will do a Gantt chart for you. Yeah.
Are we starting the Gantt chart from today or from when we started the project?
I would prefer you start from where you like fade it, right? But if you wanted to start with that, like at this point, just understand a Gantt chart. That's all I care about. You get one done, you understand it, so when you get to the next project, you can actually really use a Gantt chart for organization. So I'm gonna leave that up to you, really. So here are these Excel Gantt charts. So Trello is a really nice way to manage your project. Trello lets you, so when I was, this is like ancient days, I was a director of technology for this one company, and have you ever seen like the big rooms and you have in the wing, you have this big glass office? That was me, I was in the fishbowl. I was director of technology, and I had 5 bulletin boards in there. And each bulletin board had like a 3x5 cards for every task, right? So here, the to-do list, and then here was the in-progress list. So we just take the cards and move from one list to the other. And then finally, the in-testing list, and then finally, the done list, okay? And so people would come in my office and say, I'm done with this, blah, blah, test it out, or blah, blah, blah. And so now they have the digital version. Can you imagine having 5, I mean, I had a pretty big office. Can you imagine having 5 bulletin boards in my office? It was quite tremendous. That was actually a really good job where I learned, that's where I got a lot of my stories for this class, senior design. I learned a lot of stuff from what not to do. Mostly, I had 60 developers I was managing. You really learn a lot about what to do with 60 people. All right, so that's what Trello is. I'm going to suggest, even though Trello's not, here again, all that useful for you right now will be for the next project. Okay, it's that board, just like my bulletin board that I talked to you about. It's got lists like the to-do, the in-progress, the in-testing, and the done, and then the cards. The cards are like my 3x5 cards that I use. And this is what Trello looks like. So you can actually give the cards a lot of detail. You can actually even upload a PDF or a picture or whatever to either one, any of the cards, right? So as a record of sort of this is what it looks like, or this is what we want to do, or here's a document, or whatever. So it's actually, it's got due dates, it's a really nice tool. You can just keep it simple and so forth, or you can really do it complicated and really take advantage of all of its power. But I would suggest, this is not a requirement, but I'm going to suggest that you use Trello. Here's a zoom in on the cards. There's tons of stuff you can put in there. So that's Trello. GitKraken is also another option you can use. GitKraken has Git integration, so that might be better. But I definitely would probably lean towards Trello. Jira is, you're going to use Jira when you get to senior design. It's required. So it's mostly for agile development. So I don't teach Agile in this class, although I probably should. I just don't have time for it. It's one of those things I cannot possibly cram one more thing in. So what I'm going to do is say you could use Jira if your team decides that they want to take an Agile approach. I had these 2 girls. They were in process. They said we're going to do Agile. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then as senior design, they said we're going to use Agile. And what they were doing is they were trying their best to really learn Agile. They are both currently senior project managers at Microsoft because that was what they wanted to do. And so I'm really proud of them. They did it. So if you want to use Agile in this class, you can. I'm not going to help you much. I actually am a certified Scrum Master, so I know the technology pretty well. You can use Agile if you want, but I'm going to expect most people don't. They're going to use sort of a combination of Trello and maybe Gantt charts. When you get to senior design, you're required to use Agile. Jira has these things called burn down charts where you can actually see what your progress is and where you're up and down and all that kind of stuff. That is a nice thing about Jira, but It's actually it's way harder to use than, it's way harder to use than Trello. So I'm gonna suggest, right now, your life is already complicated enough, stick with Trello, and there are a lot of also YouTube tutorials on it. There's like a YouTube Zero to Hero on Trello. Okay, so why, have you ever talked to like someone who's non-technical? Oh, your brother, your aunt, whatever, your grandmother, and you try to explain something, do they ever get it? Okay, no. So this is the problem with you doing software engineering and talking to these non-technical people. Now, there's nothing wrong with non-technical people. Like, I like my doctor and he saves my life all the time. Or my dentist, or the guy who fixes my car, or the plumber, or whatever. But you've got a different language. See what I'm saying? By the way, on plumbers, my grandfather had the #2 plumbing license in '94. Just so you know, I come from a line of plumbers, so it's amazing I didn't end up a plumber. It's actually fun to do. So here's the thing about modeling is I want to give you a picture because you might not be technical. I know you're technical. But what if you weren't? What if I gave you a picture? Would that make it easier? A graph or a chart or something? And then you and I, we now have a better understanding of each other, and it's just the communication is there, okay? Because I don't care what you say, there's not, by the way, I'm doing this job now for this, they're called masterpiece designers. They're the ones, you know, the model homes for builders and stuff, they go in and they figure out, they put the furniture in them, and they make it all pretty and stuff. That's what they do. I'm redoing their whole software now, and like, they have no clue what I'm saying, so I just use a lot of pictures. So anyway, that's what we're talking about right now. That's why we're gonna be doing this, because you want to be able to communicate with non-technical people with these UML diagrams. Okay. I know it's a wall of text, more wall of text. We're only gonna use 4 types in this classroom. Non-UML diagrams, entity relationship diagrams, Gantt charts, and for Agile burn-down charts. The entity relationship diagrams are really easy. I'm going to talk to your database role right now. Your database is going to do this. You're going to have a users table with a primary key. You're going to have a line with a one-many relationship. Guess what? To your context. That's your ERD. What an ERD is for, entity relationship diagram, is to show the relationship in a database. I once was doing the senior design. I was sitting on the senior design committee, and this CTO from Northrop, no, Lockheed, was there and said, he looked at the guys and they said, where's your ERD? And they're like, oh. He said at Lockheed you wouldn't get past like first base without an ERD. So from that point I started requiring ERDs. It's a really important thing. You think, oh, that's great. But anybody can see this. You know, ERD for you, you're gonna have 2 tables, and I have some samples shortly, I think. If not, ask me. Use case, simple. All right, here's a use case. This is the easiest picture I can show my non-technical person, okay? First, you start off with a boundary. I say you need a boundary. Do you know what 10% of your groups in this class are going to forget? Boundary, that's great. Send you to college. On both sides of the boundary, you have what are called actors. So an actor is usually, the actor on the left side is the user, the person. For you, it's going to be the person who can use your contact database, right? Okay, on the right side, you are probably going to change that actor to a database. Because that's really what you're talking to, isn't it? Yes. I just answered the question for you. All right, so what you're going to do is you have these elliptical things. That's what that's what the application does. Your application can say login. Your application is going to say something like add a contact, search a contact, or whatever it's going to be. And these are going to be connected with some sort of a line. Oh, include. I wonder what that means. Okay. You see how those 2 use cases up there, they're related. Insert card and enter pin. So we'll put it include there to say, hey, these are kind of the same family, okay? So we might have others here. So if you're going to do that, extends, okay. That's like an edge case. That's something that's not going to happen very much. Maybe they type in the wrong password 10 times and they get locked out or something like that. And then we're gonna, form lines and so forth, and then we might have an intermediate step that goes there. So here's some student use case diagrams I've got, and I like this. I'm just showing you good ones that they've shown me. I don't necessarily like this one, this is all vertical, but I like this because it's color coded, very nice detail. Notice they have boundaries. This has partial boundaries, it should have been over there. This is good, this is good, okay. So let's get this. So, here are these. I'm gonna do all this. Not to my, not to remote desktop. Got it. So ERD entity, relationship. Let me just get some pictures here, images. So if you take a look, it just shows you a diagram of your database and shows you the relation. That's all I gotta do. I have one in some of my documentation, so you can just check that. So you guys know what a UML class diagram is. For your second project, you're required to have a class diagram. So this is all OOP stuff, okay? You guys all took OOP. Who should have for OOP, by the way? Anybody have Zoom? Anybody have Zoom? Yeah, he was the best. He's gone now. I can say anything I want about him. He's the best OOP teacher we've ever had. I think he was really good. So this is a lot about OOP that I'm going to be talking about right now. Is OOP. I know you guys thinking, oh, that was boring, you know, all that stuff. I don't know how I'm ever going to use it. It's probably the most important class you're taking before this class. Okay. So let's talk about UML diagrams. Every UML diagram is made up of these classes. Okay. Classes names, got attributes, which are properties or fields. You know, in Java they're actually variables with getters and setters. In like the C# language, they're actually real properties. Methods are functions, methods really. So, so we have the idea that attributes are more like adjectives, right? And methods are more like what?
Verbs.
Verbs, right? Things you do, right? So if I have a dog, maybe Rottweiler or something, from the Mean Mood or something, it's right? So, what are the attributes? Brown, 150 pounds, or whatever, long toenails, 5 foot high, whatever. What are the methods? Bark, eat, fetch, protect me, whatever. So that's really what we're talking about. Unfortunately, I remember I was a C programmer, and all of a sudden there was this new thing called C++, and it had classes. And so we have this anti-pattern where people who are just used to procedural programming use object-oriented languages, but they do it just like it's a procedural language. That was me. It took me 3 years to understand OOP, but that was back in the dark ages when nobody understood it. But anyway, so that's what so the reason these are important is because if you have a job or if someone takes over your project, in senior design, a lot of times people take over projects in version 2 sometimes, or 3 or 4, whatever. If they're really bad, it's version 10. So we have these relationships to talk about, and hopefully you'll understand those because we've talked for 1,000 times. So let's talk about a zoo, okay? Now, there's no like hidden meaning. This is the zoo part, all right? I'll take the first one. So we have a class. In the class, encapsulates these animals. The problem is with these animals, they're all different. So if I have an animal class, it's gonna be pretty hard to encapsulate the lion and say the pelican or whatever that thing is. So they're all animals for sure, but it's still hard. So what we're going to do is we're going to have attributes differentiated. Here's a turtle name, ID, age. And by the way, just so you know, before those attributes, you see a minus there, right? You know what the 3 options are? A minus and a plus, yes? Minus is private. Plus is public, right? And there's a third one that most people don't use or think about is the pound symbol protected, right? Right. Okay, so you have these attributes, really properties, and methods are things that they're gonna do, set name, I was thinking more like eat. So this package default thing is a thing of the past, we're probably never gonna see it. So we have animals, we have employees in the zoo, and we have relationships, okay? So here we have turtles, I think that's a slow loris, an otter and a slow loris, okay? So now, each of these animals inherits, right? So this is what your class diagram needs to look like. You're gonna do a class diagram for the second project, and it's probably gonna be for your mobile app. Your mobile app will lend itself very well to your class diagram, okay? And it's also gonna give you experience of creating class diagrams. So we have inheritance, right? Isn't that what it is? Oh yeah, I remember that. So now that I inherited, the otter can have this weight thing that maybe I didn't put into anybody else, right? Waist for leg for an otter, which of course it's going to have. So this is this idea of abstraction. And now that you've had it one time, you're going to hear abstraction, the word abstraction for me a lot. When you get to SC2, I do a whole lecture on this thing called solid design principles. And so abstraction, it used to be a vogue that say that all the time. Now it's actually real, for real. Okay, don't repeat yourself. Dry, has anybody heard that? The dry principle? Don't repeat yourself. Okay, so where'd you, I'm just curious where you heard that. How did I know that? He was, I have only good things to say about him. So, all right, so now we have this idea of association. Association is not a strong connection, but like the otter eats these sea urchins. Even though the otter isn't really like directly connected to sea urchins, it's this association that otters are going to eat all these sea urchins. I can't imagine a more disgusting meal, but hey, you know. So now we have more relationships. So that's a turtle. Oh no, that's a group of turtles. So you know what the name of a group of turtles is? I've been called this before, by the way. It's a creep. So a group of tortoises is a creep. Obviously, you can still have a single tortoise, right? So now we have this relationship that we can have between a creep and a tortoise. We can have a group of them. And so remember how in the ERD we had a one-to-many relationship? You'll see I'm going to show you some class diagrams. So we're going to have a one-to-many relationship. The tortoise can leave, so aggregation is the name of that. Okay. So far, the relationships we've had is inheritance, association, aggregation, and now we're going to talk about composition. Okay, so now we're at a park of some sort, or the park with a zoo, or whatever it turns out to be. And you have the main visitor center, then you have a lobby, and then a bathroom. One bathroom. Can you imagine that here at UCF? By the way, I had one senior design team. It was the weirdest project I've ever heard. They had a loo finder. It was actually an app. And they, like all the bathrooms, you could see a map, you could actually see like what the facilities were, and people could rate them. It was pretty weird. I don't think I would use them. Is it a pretty good idea? Mm-hmm. Okay, when you get to senior design, I'll give you their GitHub, and you can sort of do an updated version or whatever. So, yeah, so if whatever happens, the main visitor center is broken or whatever, we're done. The other things don't exist, right? So those are actually composition, right? And we are going to I do a lecture on design patterns in here. And one of the big things that we have in designing classes is called aggregation. When I do this design pattern lecture, I'm going to kind of sort of show you how things fit together. It used to be really, people used to joke, oh, it's another pattern or whatever. But there are probably about 30 design patterns that are really useful for us. Okay, multiplicity. So you have just one, or you have a whole bunch of atoms, right? Okay, I'm actually trying not to run out of time here. So here are examples of class diagrams that students have done for me. That's a nice one. It shows you the relationships. This is really good because it shows you the numerical relationships. I like this one because it's color-coded. I like so sequence diagrams. Sequence diagrams go from left to right. They don't give you times and stuff. So I'm gonna go through this kind of fast. They don't give you times, but what they do is they give you sequence, right? So you have an ATM, someone walks up to the ATM, they put in their card, and the person is still an actor, even though we had that for a use case diagram, we still have the same actor for a sequence. Hey Vern, you mashed the wrong button. God. Come on here. I think there's anything right here. That is. Okay, so customer is not an object but an actor. Okay. So that's an actor. So all of these things are objects. The ATM is an object, the database is an object, and the server is an object, okay? And so the objects go into these rounded rectangles. So now I've got 3 rounded rectangles for this. And I'll put the ATM in there, and the server, and then the bank account, okay? And what you do is you have these lifelines that are vertical, and you're gonna go from left to right. I think I'm looking at that wrong. Left to right, okay? And you send a message, you know, here's my card, message, and theoretically things go from left to right, and you get a return message. Now, there's this thing called an alternate frame, is how we have to add conditionals. Card is not valid. They're just like conditionals, if-then statements. That's all they are really. Okay. Here is what I would really like. I would like to just talk to 30 or 60 seconds. Would you, if you don't mind, let's do that. So what I want to do is meet here, you right now, we have 15 minutes, and I want to come around a certain way, like your team, point up where you walk. So please get your teams right now, let's come on, fuck you.